Fairleigh, Vermont, July 2nd, 1984. It's 7 a.m. and final preparations are just about complete. In a few moments, these men will set out on a unique archaeological expedition. They'll attempt to locate and recover the remains of a boat that sank here in 1830. A boat that was powered by one of man's earliest successful attempts at internal combustion. The creation of local inventor Samuel Morey, the man for whom this lake was named. Samuel Morey. The only tangible evidence of his physical existence is this hand-cut silhouette made in 1824. He'd have been 62 that year, still 2 decades away from the end of a career that generated 20 registered patents, as well as one of the earliest controversies in U.S. patent history. If it's proof you need of Morey's inventive exploits, just call on the curator of manuscripts at Dartmouth's Baker Library. Deep in a climatized vault there, you'll find a certain box full of old papers that graphically chronicle a lifetime of inventive genius. Here are some of the first patent documents in American history, written in the actual words of the inventor and signed by the likes of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison. This is the stuff of a history buff's dreams.
He had patents covering boilers of his own design, rapid-fire steam-powered guns, gas and vapor engines, different forms of hydrogen burners and carbon burners to provide light and heat, various forms of windmills, water wheels, hot air power, many patents covering boiler improvements, various forms of steam engines, the most notable being the revolving steam engine of 1815.
Peter Levesque of Heartland has made an avocation out of understanding and even reconstructing Samuel Morey's endless gadgetry.
I first became interested in this in grade school after hearing and reading about Morey's steam and gas experiments. And in later years I decided it might be nice to replicate some of his early hardware. This boat represents the first steam-powered paddle wheel boat anywhere in the world. The hull was made for the 1963 Orford bicentennial celebration, and I have now gotten a hold of it and decided that it might be nice to fit it with replicas of Morey's original hardware and get it to an operating state and actually run it up the Connecticut River. I'm standing here on the Connecticut River at a site about a half a mile north of the village of Orford. It was at this site where the old ferry landing was, and also where Samuel Morey first launched his steam-powered log dugout boat on a Sunday morning in 1793.
Legend has it that Morey would reserve Sunday mornings for his steamboat trials. The idea was to avoid public derision, as most villagers would be in church. His strategy usually failed at the hands of bands of truant youngsters determined to heckle Morey and his noisy contraption from shore. Samuel Morey's log dugout steamboat experiments eventually led to a 1795 patent, which might have assured him a place in history as the father of steam power, if it hadn't been for a fatal miscalculation and a man named Fulton.
He was hoping that the side paddle wheels would be covered under the patent, but he didn't specifically state that as so. Unfortunately for Morey, the side paddle wheels were more valuable than anything that he had done to his engine. Chancellor Livingston, who was backing Robert Fulton, came to Orford and spoke with great length to Morey about the side paddle wheels. And in later years, Fulton himself applied for a patent on the side paddle wheels. That was in 1811. He was free to do so legally, if not morally, because he knew that the invention was Morey's and Morey's alone. He was pretty upset with Fulton about this and told him so once while he was on Fulton's boat.
While time has all but obscured the unfortunate Fulton affair, a present-day controversy now rages among the local populace over hometown bragging rights to the Morey legend. You see, folks in Fairleigh, Vermont have always claimed him as one of theirs because, well, their lake is called Morey, and everyone knows that his family fortune was made from a lucrative lumbering operation in the forests just outside of town. But Fairleigh is a border town and shares this particular stretch of the Connecticut River with Orford, New Hampshire. As luck would have it, Morey's official home sits tantalizingly close to the Vermont-New Hampshire border, not far from the bridge connecting Fairleigh, over here, with Orford over there. Named in his honor, the Samuel Morey Bridge was built by and is maintained by New Hampshire, if that's any help. Now, his bones do reside on the Orford side of the river, but who's to say if that was Morey's choice anyway? No, for the last word on anything having to do with Sam Morey, yes, including his true geographical heritage, you have to go to the source, and that means a visit with the current occupant of the old Morey place.
He had a great many businesses here, and he also did all of his inventions, his patented inventions. There were 20 of them here in Orford, and all of his 4,000 and more experiments were done in Orford. I think that perhaps explains the fact that he belongs in Orford most of all, and did his work and inventions here to the great extent.
Alice Hodgson is the great-great-great-granddaughter of one of Morey's prominent neighbors and actually grew up in the inventor's house. As an adult, she's authored 2 books and numerous articles on the subject of Samuel Morey.
Well, I was interested in Samuel Morey all my life. I have lived in his house since I was 3 years old, but I began to be more interested as I got older, of course, and I particularly got interested when teachers in school would tell me Fulton invented the steamboat, and I had to say no, he hadn't, and I'd go on about it, and they'd say, Alice, sit down, and so I decided to look things up, and I studied him a lot and read about him, and just kept on all the rest of my life. Then, of course, I got a phone call from Peter Levesque, who was interested to know about Morey, and I enjoyed telling him and was glad to have someone be interested. And then he wanted to know about the internal combustion engine, and I told him where it was and that he perhaps could get it because we were offered it and we couldn't use it.
And here's the only surviving working example of that engine. This is a model that was built in 1931 for the Museum of Science and Industry in New York as a centerpiece for their transportation collection. The museum's curator was Charles Duryea, who made the first mass-produced automobiles in this country, and he recognized Morey's engineering advances in this engine. It's a 2-cylinder engine. You have 2 vertical cylinders, and it works on a 2-stroke principle. Morey's biggest contribution to internal combustion was the invention of a carburetor. Other people had made internal combustion engines before, but no one had ever manufactured their own fuel mixture on board. He did it in this device, which he called his preparing box, which consists of a whole series of baffles. It's basically just what's referred to as a surface carburetor, in that the vibrations from the engine and the air passing over the fuel makes enough of a mixture to burn inside the cylinders. Morey's interesting achievements on this engine were the use of rocker arms, push rods, and poppet valves, as are found in a modern automobile engine.
Samuel Morey's 1826 patent on the so-called gas or vapor engine secured his place in history as the father of internal combustion, an honor he would never know. The only known application of the new power, as he liked to call it, was to propel a 20-foot boat named the Aunt Sally. Morey's strategy was to use the boat to promote his new engine, a strategy that failed to attract any interest and led to the scuttling of the Aunt Sally, probably at the hands of the inventor himself.
His internal combustion engine had not been successful in selling. He had not been successful in selling the right to it. He'd gone to Baltimore and tried to sell it for the Baltimore and Ohio Railway that was just starting up. And he said to a friend in Orford that if he didn't succeed this one last time attempting to sell the engine, he would come home and live the rest of his life in quiet, give it up, and come home. And he could have sunk the Aunt Sally because of it. And then again, there are other theories that it was just a ship that was not useful, boat that was not useful anymore, and in that day, they used to fill it with stones and sink it, get it out of the way. But I can't believe that he would have sunk the boat and the engine unless it was just plain desperation and unhappiness over the whole thing. It's definitely a boat has been sunk in Lake Morey, and I'm pretty sure it's Aunt Sally, and I'm pretty sure the engine would be in there. The New Hampshire Antiquarian Society sent men over to look for Aunt Sally, and they had a grappling hook, and they asked people on the lake, one was a grandnephew of Sammy Morey, where they should look. And he told them that his brother had seen the Aunt Sally. This was before 1859 when he went to California, and he'd seen it on a very clear day with the still water, and it was down there and hadn't sunk into the mud, which now it has, of course. And so they looked there, and another man told them it was up at the head of the lake. He claims to have seen it sunk in when he was a boy.
I'll show you on the map where I think it is.
Hey, Dave, come here. He knows exactly where it is.
I didn't say I know where it is. I say I know where I think it is.
Come on.
And where is that? Huh? It's down off Echo Mountain down there.
Okay, you got your map. Get your map, and let's put an X on there.
Fact is, there are just about as many opinions concerning the Aunt Sally's submerged whereabouts as there are fish in Lake Morey. So it came as a kind of common local relief when this year's expedition set out on their locate and recover mission, armed with the very type of electronic technology used to find the legendary Civil War gunboat, the Monitor, off Cape Hatteras.
What this does is send sound down to the bottom, into the bottom, below the bottom, and then back to the ship. And the records, it puts it on this chart. And if we're lucky and go over a place where there's something that's buried, we'll get an indication. We can throw a buoy and get the divers to dig it up and find out what it is.
And today?
Well, today's, we got to get going. I don't know what we're going to find. Probably nothing, but you never find it sitting on the dock. You got to get out and get going.
To make matters even more hopeful, the illustrious hero of the fabled Monitor expedition would be today's searchmaster.
Roughly across buoy 19.
Seated on the left is Dr. Harold Edgerton of MIT, one of the heavyweights of sonar research. Assisting him today is his former student, Alice Hodgson's son-in-law, Dave Barton.
About halfway out between the two lines here. Go on right down this string of buoys. Okay, I think we want to go down and look
right.
for P down here.
Okay.
Heading into a pre-laid grid of numbered marker buoys, the search team begins a long morning of sonar sweeps.
July 2, 1984. Lake Morey. This is the surface of the water, and this is depth. So this is 9 meters, 18 meters. The water here, you see, is about 6 meters deep, but there are two layers there. One is a real hard layer down at the bottom, and then there's another layer. This is soft sediment, and what we're looking for is targets that show up in this soft sediment. Hey, look.
Well, hold on, 35.
John, look. That's a new one, isn't it? We never saw that before.
A number of strong sonar readings prompt the search team to call in a diver immediately. By early afternoon, Eugene Brunel arrives from Burlington. Brunel brings along a 5-foot pole he'll use to probe the exceptionally muddy bottom.
And it's a little bit beyond buoy 19, so starting at this end, you'll work your way down from 30 to 19, and you'll see P for Peggy a little bit out of the line, and it's in about 4.5 meters of water, under which is probably 2 meters of mud. And somewhere embedded in that mud, there's something that gives a target indication. If you finish that one, there are 2 more buoys out in the center here labeled M for Mary and N for Nancy. And I don't remember exactly what the depth is, but it seems to me they were both objects fairly close to the surface of the mud, which is only maybe 1.5 meters deep out there.
How far did you get
I
down?
didn't see anything.
You got down way there with the
I was
probe?
probing in the mud, the length of my arm and the length of that.
So we ought to get a bigger.
Rather anticlimactically, nothing was found that first day of diving. The combination of loose silt and deep mud at the bottom made visibility and hand probing ineffectual.
It's a suspicious-looking character.
On the second day, things began looking up. Conditions had improved enough to disqualify several previously hopeful sonar targets. The third day brought an inkling of discovery when diver Brunel came upon a concentration of rock and brick. Might these be the actual ballast used to weigh down and sink the Aunt Sally?
Was a pile of these?
The answer and sum total of the expedition now lies in a backyard along the southern shore of Lake Morey. A boat was found that third day, an old boat fashioned of hand-hewn wood, now splintered and decayed from decades of submersion. This was not the Aunt Sally, only an insignificant little rowboat someone had filled with stones and set adrift 30 or so years ago. She serves as a kind of modest shrine to the dedicated efforts of two individuals who refused to let the Morey legend die.
Yeah, I'm fascinated with Morey because he was doing so much at so early a time period. Things are pretty primitive in the turn of the last century, and just the things that he had to work with, the metals and things that he was able to obtain, and the crudeness of all the machinery that he had to work with. It was just, it's amazing to me how much he was able to accomplish.
He was interested in improving life and yet also interested in being understood, which he never was in his lifetime, and I hope he is now going to be in time today, have these things recognized and believed in and understood.